whatever you tell your mind to do, it's going to do, and it's going to bring it to your reality. And once I understood that and I experimented with that, with the things that I'd done in my life, it always proven to actually work. My thing started to be, I have to make sure I'm controlling my mind more.
Hola, Mindshifters. In this week's episode of the Mindshift Mami Show, I'm sitting down with Rosalee Daly, a banker turned businesswoman extraordinaire. Rosalee dove into the entrepreneurial world head first when she left the corporate world and established her own trucking company during the 2020 pandemic. Today, along with her transportation company, she is a business consultant working with corporations and small businesses. Rosalee utilizes her 10 plus years in the banking industry, part of which she spent as the first Black woman VP in her bank, to ensure that her clients, particularly small business owners, have the necessary financial literacy to succeed. We discuss some of the opportunities and challenges she faced on her journey, financial advice she wishes that she had when first starting her business, and the mindset shifts she has made along the way as she's traveled further into her own personal journey of self-discovery and empowerment. If you are interested in conversations around mindset, empowerment, and self-development, make sure you like and subscribe to this channel. And now let's get into the conversation. Okay, so welcome to the show, Rosalee. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So I want to start with your banking career. Can you walk us a little bit into how you got started in the banking industry first? And did you have to work your way up to becoming VP? So I'm kind of curious about your path there. And then once you were in that VP position, some of the key opportunities and challenges you faced as the only Black female vice president, and how did those experiences shape your approach to leadership?
Great question. So I started in college. My friend had got a job at Bank of America and they were paying, I remember $11.25. And we were like, oh, get me in there. I want an $11.25 an hour job at that time. And I applied, I got in, I started as a teller part-time. And I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. I have a family of bankers. So my brother-in-law, my sister used to work at the bank. And so I was familiar with it, but I just was like, I never thought I could work at the bank until I got the job. And I was like, okay, this is not hard. And I always attribute my success to one of my mentors. His name was Darnell. And he was just astonishing, like his personality, how smart he was, how he handled the customers. And I'm like, ooh, I want to be like that. So he inspired me to take my job really serious and be better. And I worked my way up to full-time teller. I got promoted. And then from full-time teller, I got promoted again, which is something called a sales associate, where now we're able to sell products on the other side, because the teller line, everybody knows when you go into the bank, you're on that side. And then there's the banker sitting on the other side. And that was an upgrade.
Okay. Yeah. You don't have to deal with the long lines on that side.
So then I was
the angry, disgruntled customer.
But even though the teller line, I feel like me starting where I started attributed to a lot of my success, honestly.
I bet.
Because I knew how to do things that some of my other colleagues that were managers could not do, because they didn't have the training. They kind of just jumped into leadership, but they didn't have the knowledge or the technical skill when it came to that. So I had technical and I had the leadership.
Yes.
So, I was outpacing a lot of people.
Yes. Literally ground up.
Yes. Yes. And I like that. I love that a lot. So I got promoted a couple other times. I was a personal banker. I was in charge of the whole sales for a branch, and that was a lot. And that's where I grew my selling skills, because I was scared to sell. I didn't want to bother people for no credit card. I'm like, they don't need that. But when I changed my perspective, that I was actually helping people get something that they need, asking the right questions, I just became a beast. And my banking center never not made its sales goal. And I was the only one selling.
Wow.
Yeah. So from there, let's see. Then I went into another leadership position and then got promoted again. And then I found myself as a vice president branch manager at another institution. And that's where my journey had came to a halt.
So how long was that whole process from teller to VP? How many years did that take?
10 years.
Okay.
I say I did that probably in 8, but I left banking at 10.
Okay. So describe. So what's happening at this halt? You transitioned from this bank from Bank of America to another bank at this point where you're the VP?
Well, so I worked at several banks.
Yes.
So that was my last stop
Gotcha.
where I was vice president branch manager. The one in between, TD Bank, I was a assistant vice president branch manager. I started as a head teller, worked my way up there. I attribute a lot of my success in banking to TD Bank because that's where I learned a lot about banking. It's not always taught. You have to actually seek the knowledge. And I was one of those who sought the knowledge and learning about trust and wills and estates and actually.
I was going to ask because I'm like, as a customer of banks only who knows I'm just going, taking my money and putting it in. What else does it entail? A
lot. One, the wealth building part was key for me. It shifted my perspective on money, learning that people. I had this whole idea about money when I would see somebody with like over 300,000 in their bank account, but still come into the bank for a loan. I'm like, you have it. Why do you need a loan? You have the money. But I didn't understand the knowledge of that. You know, you use other people's money to make more money. You keep your cash liquid. I started to learn those principles and actually being able to interact with those people coming in. They were very helpful of just even sharing some of their success and how they how did they attain their wealth? That was big.
Wow.
And a lot of it was real estate. I learned very quickly.
Yes.
So it was a lot. It was a great learning experience for me. And it shaped who I am now in business.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Okay. Yeah. So VP, how was that experience for you? What were the opportunities? You're already kind of telling some great opportunities that you picked up. Was there any more as VP that you picked up? And then what were some of the challenges you faced? Yeah.
So I think the biggest opportunity for me was my ability to bring other people with me. I think I'm all about, you can make it to the top, but if you like push down the ladder and don't let anybody else climb up, it's like, what are you even doing? And that's not my ministry. So I was able to bring probably about 8 different people with me when I transitioned and also got them promoted to leadership positions, right? So that was important. So the access that I had was important. The influence was important because I did have some influence at that time to change things on a bigger scale. But unfortunately, sometimes people say they want change until the change comes. And then now, you're saying, hey, I think we should try this. This is better. It works. And sometimes you become a target. And me being one of the only Black women, I was the youngest as that too. The microaggressions that I faced was, I never usually paid attention to it too much, but I definitely could not ignore it, if that made sense. I always dressed a certain way. I always made sure I showed up, and that intimidated a lot of other people who didn't show up as neat and professional as me, as they should be in a leadership position, right? They didn't have as much knowledge as they should have being in certain positions. And it's like, hey, you don't know this, and you didn't even take the time to learn it. It's kind of concerning, right? So things were kind of brought to light that I think a lot of people didn't want it to come to light. So then now it's like, oh, it's your fault.
Interesting.
But I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that period a lot because it was my growth period for sure. And it taught me a lot about myself and what I'm able to overcome, which is the big one. And also taught me that, I'm working for like $1 billion company. I'm making all this money for them, I think I could do that for myself too.
Yes, absolutely. And we're definitely going to talk about that a little later in terms of your money mindset and how making more money throughout your journey impacted your mindset. But I want to touch back on those microaggressions you mentioned, because so many women of color, people of color, minoritized communities deal with microaggressions in the workplace. And they can be subtle, like you said, where you might not even realize it at some point, but they can also be really, they can impact people. Can you share specific examples that you encountered and how you navigated those moments while maintaining your own professional growth?
One that I can remember briefly is my hair. I changed my hair unintentionally. It wasn't the hair color that I wanted, and the stylist just kind of messed up on the coloring. So my hair was so much brighter than I'm used to wearing. So I was a little uncomfortable myself because I just wasn't used to it. And I had to go into the office because I was right before I went to vacation, but I was still in the office. And there were a lot of comments about my hair in a way that I was already feeling some type of way too. So them pointing it out made me feel even like, first of all, you shouldn't care. Well, I still look really professional, but it just kind of hurt my confidence just a tad bit at that time.
What were they saying specifically?
Oh, what did this lady say to me? And I kind of blocked some of those things out, right?
Like, was it passive aggressive or
oh
was
yeah,
it
always not. It was never really direct. Not direct, very passive aggressively, mentioning of my hair, like, oh, what's going on with your hair? Why does it look like that? Type of comments and other things that they said at that time that I had to kind of explain. But then I started to tell myself, why am I explaining? And the only reason why I probably explained is because I felt some type of way. If I was really confident in what it was, I probably wasn't going to explain anything. But understanding that they have some type of influence too, then, your appearance is everything, especially when you're a minority in these industries. Right. And they can use that against you at sometimes. But that's the only one that I can remember. And that's probably not a great example, but I did face a lot of them. And it accounted me to almost want to dim my light a little bit.
Right.
And not really want to fully show up as myself.
You don't want to stand out.
No.
Because you're already standing out.
Correct.
And it's a culture where they're promoting assimilation. So
correct. You don't want to raise your hand and say, you just kind of just want to go in and go out and not really. And I was doing a disservice to the people that I could have impacted too when I do that. So I understand that now, and I realize that.
Retrospect,
yeah, but during that time, it's like you're just trying to survive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's only been in recent years that we're even having the terminology like microaggressions, in recent years, where we're like, oh, that's a thing that, and now people are able to pinpoint it and say, yes, I experienced that in my workplace years ago. So I totally understand that. So you're VP. Now walk me through this next step in your life, because from what I'm understanding, you transitioned from banking to trucking, which is a very drastic, random in my mind leap, but maybe not. So what motivated you to enter an industry where you had no prior experience, and what skills did you find most transferable? But first, maybe just what is the story? Why did you leave the bank? And then how did you find yourself in trucking? So it happened during the pandemic. We all know the shutdown 2020, the effects. And honestly, I did not like being in the bank. I was front and center. It was scary. I still had to interact with people. I could not be home or work from home. I was just like, I don't want to do this. It just wasn't sitting right with my spirit. And I knew I had to leave, but I was just kind of like going with the motions. Fast forward 2019, an opportunity came to me to invest in a truck, and I declined it because I had other investments that I wanted to do, and I declined it. And I was like, I don't really want to give this much money to somebody else for their business. If I were ever to do it, I think it would have made more sense for me to do it myself. And I listened to this podcast about trucking, and it kind of opened my eyes, and I sent it to my friend who wanted to be in trucking, and she went on and invested and did her thing. I was like, okay, whatever. 2020 happens, pandemic. I'm working in the bank. Eventually, I got let go. And I was like, okay, do I want to go back into another bank? No, not right now. So I'm like, what are you going to do? I'm driving home on the highway. I'm looking, the trucks. Only thing that was on the road was the trucks. And it was like trucking. And I was like, okay, what do I have to do? I don't know. So I figured it out. Went to YouTube University. I remember that podcast. And the guy who, his name is Alex, he had a podcast about trucking, and then he actually had a course. So I was like, I'm going to purchase his course. Purchase his course and followed step by step what he said to do. There was some missing pieces, but I figured out the missing pieces was in his was it mastermind? Okay. So I had to get the additional mastermind, and I just kind of like step by step
figured it out one piece at a time, because I figured, okay, you know, banking, you have a general idea of business. I couldn't even say back then I knew business, because knowing business on the outside versus the inside is two different things. Like, if you can be a banker and know, okay, you should do this for business, but until you're actually running a business, you would never understand what it's like to be a business owner. So I did those things that I knew from banking, like, okay, I need this business account. I need this with the Secretary of State. I need this tax ID. I know I need this. Did that and realized I came across some roadblocks, but we got past that and eventually bought the truck, found a driver.
So exciting.
It was exciting.
Well, so what can you tell me, you don't mind, what does it mean to buy a truck and find a driver? Like, what are you transporting? Like, what's going on?
So in trucking, for my trucking people and those who don't know trucking, as you look on the road, there's so many different ways to transport an item. I went with the semi-tractor trailer, which is the 18-wheelers.
Okay.
Everybody was asked, like, oh, do you drive? No.
Right.
That wasn't my ministry. My ministry was, I wanted to be a business owner. And I realized that most business owners, they're not the one actually doing that part of the work. They're doing the other stuff. So I wanted to do the other things, which I knew that I was good at, which is like operations and sales. I could do that. I didn't have the skill to drive. So let me find somebody who has the skill to drive, give them a piece of the pie. I'll take the rest and manage it.
Yes.
So we chose what type of truck we wanted, had to figure out what we wanted to transport. And I do the dry market, which is called like dry goods, essentially. Things that you see like in your Target, Walmart. Sometimes I do groceries, but it's mostly stuff that doesn't need to be refrigerated. So it's like water, dry goods, things of that nature we haul a lot of. But I didn't know what I wanted to haul back then. I just kind of like, okay, what is everybody else doing? And I knew that everybody was doing dry van. So I was like, let me try the dry van market. And that's how we did that. Found a driver. Now, finding work was a whole nother different story because we don't have no experience. They're trying to trust you with this $100,000 piece of cargo.
The actual supplier of the dry good. Okay.
Yeah. So that was another kind of learning curve of building up a strong reputation, which that was my transferable skill, is knowing that relationships are everything and you have to build a relationship with someone so they can know, like, and trust you.
Absolutely.
And sometimes you might have to take it for lower, saying, hey, I know we don't know each other. I know you're kind of going out on a limb. Let me do this for you. We do it good. We'll do it again. Right. And that's how I built a lot of the relationships, is just like working with them, because when you're in trucking, you have to negotiate a lot. And it was a lot of negotiation. I can get something for $1,000, or I could try to ask for $1,200, or I could take it for $9. It just depends on the negotiation power. So that was one thing that I learned as well, is that it had to be a win-win for both of us.
Yes.
And that's a transferable skill I think I got from the bank, especially, is making sure that it makes sense for me, it makes sense for the person.
And you were doing this during 2020? Okay. So building an actual company from the ground, especially during the pandemic, is no easy feat. So what were some of the initial hurdles that you faced did you have to raise capital for your business? Okay. So what were some of the hurdles, including raising capital or anything else that came along the way, establishing your business, and how did you overcome them?
Oh, there was a lot of hurdles. Being one, when you start a trucking company, there's something like a waiting period before they actually give you permission to be on the roads, because it's such a this federal, because it's such a high risk industry. They kind of make you wait, but you still have to pay those fees, meaning like my insurance still has to get paid. Things still has to get paid before you even can make money.
Oh my God. Yeah. Like, what? You're making me pay while I'm waiting?
Yeah. So that was scary. Understanding that part was scary.
How long did they make you wait?
30 days.
Okay. I guess.
30 days. And, everybody still wants their money. But I was naive a little bit because, I have this banking background. I had really good credit. We had some money in the bank for our business, because we had a business bank account open, put the money in the business bank account, let it sit. And then I was like, okay, let's go get some credit cards. Let's go get some stuff for the business. And I remember specifically Chase. That's what we decided to bank with. I'm sorry, Chase. I love them. I love Chase. I love their accounts. I love the technology. But when it comes to the credit in the beginning, obviously, rightfully so, it was challenging to obtain it. And I did not think that was going to be the case.
Okay.
Again, because I had really good credit.
Sure, yeah.
We had money in the bank.
Right.
And yeah, I'm just like, that's all we need.
So what was their reasoning? Do they tell you?
Yes and no. So when I applied for a credit card, they denied us. And I did call, you can call for a second review. So I did that. And she was like, okay, one, you know, your industry, one, I'm in trucking. It's a high risk industry, but it is what it is. I don't tell people to change or hide or lie your industry, because out there, they'll tell you, oh, you know, just do this industry instead so you can get the funding. If that's your industry, it's your industry. Just make sure you have things set up right. And two, at that time, teaching moment, I had a credit card that I just made a purchase on it. So it was almost close to the limit and it wasn't time for me to pay yet. So she was like, oh yeah, one of your credit cards is a little bit close to your limit. And I was just like, oh, okay. I was like, can I just pay that? And then you just, no, because it's already showing up. So no, we can't do it. And I was pissed. Yeah. And I was pissed at myself because I know better than that. But again, I was like, I have this 750 credit score. Yes. That shouldn't matter.
But you're saying for anybody out there who is going to apply for a loan of some sort or a credit card, make sure your personal credit cards are paid off. Even if you have it upcoming, just wait till that pay period is done before you apply for that loan. So you're at like zero balance, hopefully, or at least a lower balance at that point.
Lower balance, the rule of thumb is at least 30% or less on your credit, which is fine. Also knowing that a lot of people preach business credit, because yes, we were getting that through our business, but at the end of the day, you have to back your business. Right. Because the bank don't know your business. They know you, because your business is like a new baby still establishing itself. So you have to come in as the parent saying, hey, if my baby don't do what it needs to do, I'm going to take care of it. So that's why they were looking at my personal credit. So it does still matter, especially when you're getting traditional lending. Because I know the internet is buzzing about, oh, go to the bank, get this, get this. They're still looking at your personal credit. Especially when they're lending you business. And now today it's even worse because of the pandemic and our quote unquote recession that we've been having. The banks are stricter with their lending policies because a lot of people defaulted on those credit cards and those loans. You know, it was a whole thing during the pandemic, like go to this bank, go get 50,000, go get 25 here.
And is that specifically with the what was it called?
The PPE loan? No,
yeah. Okay.
No. On top of that, people were going to get out more credit. During there was this phenomenon going on where it was easy to get money, easy in a way, right? But nobody was having the actual business income to pay it back. So it wasn't adding up. So you're just, no, you're like, oh, I got this in my business name. They can't come after me. Actually, they can. You co-signed for your business. Yes, so they can come after you. So that was one of the teaching moments for myself, is knowing that I know better, keep my debt to income lower than 30%, especially if I'm applying for credit. Yes. Having a good mix of credit definitely helps. So having different assets on not just having credit cards. If you have a loan, if you even own a home, you look better to the banks than someone who doesn't have a home and have a higher credit score than you.
Oh, wow.
So I learned that as well, because you have more collateral just in case if they need to come and you default, they're going to put that lien on that property or whatever you got. Because you have some assets. Yes, so exactly. I learned that as well. So eventually I was able to get the Chase credit card. Not too long after. And then I looked for alternatives funding. Capital on Tap was a good company I like for newer entrepreneurs. Their funding criteria wasn't as extensive, but they do want you to have a good credit score. And they gave like 20,000, 25. Nice. But if I had to do it all over again, I would say American Express.
Okay. To go straight to them for the loan?
American Express for business credit cards, because when you get one credit card with them, you're able to get approved for their other credit cards. And I just love their customer service. I like their benefits of their card. I appreciate their business model, I must say. And that makes sense for me now. Before I didn't understand, but having a company that actually cares about their consumer, that matters. You can call them, you can work things out, the benefits and the perks, utilizing those, that was important as a business owner. And I would just say, I like American Express. I do.
Okay. All right. It's good to know. So walk me through once you've kind of gotten through these primary hurdles of the trucking business, bring me 6 months into it, because we were talking a little bit earlier and you kind of let me know that you had your head down, you were working, just hard grinding. And then 6 months you look up and you realize something.
Yeah, I was surprised. I realized how much revenue I made. I was working 12-hour days though. I was really busting my butt to make sure I was doing what I needed to do, because I had a lot to learn being a newbie. Like, you know, transitioning into trucking, a complete industry I have no idea about, but I knew about myself. I know whatever I put my mind to, I'm going to get it done. So I had the confidence in myself, and that's exactly what I did. I figured it out. I built those relationships. I would work 12-hour days and we were about to do our taxes and had to like pull some accounting, some financial reports from QuickBooks. And when I pulled it for our accountant, I was looking at it, I was like, is this right? I was like, did we really make that much money? Sometimes you're like, where is it all? Like, is it not in my pocket? But it was eye-opening for me. And I was proud of myself to see that what I was able to do by myself, right? Not under a corporate umbrella, in such a short amount of time as well. And also being able to employ someone. I think that's really important. Being able to employ and give somebody else a life, a livelihood was definitely important. So I was happy about that. Yeah. We definitely hit 6 figures for those who probably want to know. So I was happy.
Yeah. You said you doubled your...
Yeah, because I wasn't at 6 figures working at the bank. I was on trajectory to make it there. I was close, but I just didn't make it there yet. And of course, think about how long that took me, right? 8 years, 10 years. And then now I get into business for myself, and like that, I make it.
Right. And that's so what did that do for your mindset, seeing exactly that? How, like, it's almost like it, for me, would have broke a facade of like how long this traditional route of us climbing the corporate ladder or whatever the case is to, you know, make our 6 figures, and you doing it in 6 months in a completely different industry. What did that do for your mindset regarding finances and your ability to generate income?
It proved that I literally could do anything that I want to. And if you focus on it, if you like, it's cliche, but those cliche terms actually work. If you believe it, you can achieve it.
Yes. They're cliche for a reason.
Yeah. It's like your mind is so powerful. Whatever you tell your mind to do, it's going to do, and it's going to bring it to your reality. And once I understood that and I experimented with that, with the things that I'd done in my life, it always proven to actually work. So my thing started to be, I have to make sure I'm controlling my mind more. Like what I'm ingesting, what I'm reading, because I was reading a lot. I was listening to a lot of podcasts, and all that information was allowing me to grow a beautiful garden that I can actually have fruit that I can eat from, instead of making sure that I just was allowing like the negativity, because there's a lot of negative out there come in. I was just making sure that I was like focused, and it definitely changed my mindset a lot. I have a different value with money now, especially fast forward to today. I was like, I'm able to like live off a certain amount of money. I thought I needed to make all this money, which I want to make a lot of money.
Let's get it right. You just don't.
The values that I have now, and also how I'm able to maneuver, because being a full-time entrepreneur is no easy feat. Right. Like I never would, if you would have told me that I would be doing this like 4 years later, I'm like, no, I'm a corporate girl. Like I don't mind having a job. Sometimes I'd be like, who's hiring? Because I want some more benefits, you know? Yes. Can I have insurance?
Absolutely.
So it's interesting because I'm like, I was able to survive making this amount of money for myself, not what the business made, right? And I'm just like, wow, I don't need as much as I thought I did to live a very full, healthy life. Yes. Although I deserve it.
Right, exactly. And I think that's a really great distinction you're making there. Because I felt the same way. I was making 6 figures at my last corporate position, I guess you could call it. It was an educational institution, but I do believe that there's financial abundance for us and we all deserve it and it's all like our birthright and we can all have it. And when you get there, you realize like, this ain't everything. This ain't it. You know, I'd rather have more focus on other things in my life, make sure that, you know, you're following whatever is actually bringing you joy and you're not in a negative environment just for those six figures type of thing. And that there's so many other ways that you haven't even imagined yet that you can still make that money. And it's just like cherry on top while you're like living and thriving.
Yeah, I love that.
So this is kind of the first time in your life too that you're like going into this entrepreneurship, because like you said, you were that corporate girly. So then 2020, you start putting your toe into entrepreneurship. You're seeing massive success. And as we know in here, entrepreneurship also involves a lot of personal sacrifices, especially in the beginning. And like you said, just one example of that was the time you were putting in, the discipline that you had to grow. Because I'm sure I'm curious your thoughts on this, but I know for me, after leaving corporate America, I had to relearn what it meant to have discipline for my own business. Because once I was not having to report to somebody else, it was so easy for me to just go la 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 play and not have that focus and that discipline. And it's like, okay, reminding yourself, I am my own boss. I need to be my boss to myself. And if I'm going to be on time for, you know, these, you know, people, I darn sure better be on early for myself. So I'm sure part of that was mindset. And obviously you put in the time with your, the hours you were putting in and the education, reading the books, listening to the podcast, not kind of taking in all these other distractions that are in our world. Can you talk a little bit about how you manage to stay resilient? How do you, even to this day, manage to stay resilient? And any of the losses you may have experienced in terms of family and relationships, because I'm assuming also in my experience, and I wonder if this is similar to yours, transitioning from fully corporate to entrepreneurship, not only do you change your mindset career-wise, you change as a person. And so then that comes with personal development. And sometimes people are used to a certain version of you that is no longer that. So did you experience any of that? And if so, can we discuss?
I experienced a lot of loss, I must say, but it was a blessing. I always say sometimes people can't go with you to your next level. And as I was ascending, not just like professionally, it was more so spiritually. I was growing. And I always say, like, when you turn on the radio and you're at 93.7 and you go out of the zone, you can't hear 93.7. You have to change your frequency. I was on a certain frequency and the other people that were kind of in my spirit weren't. So it was just elevation, natural separation. They were going to fall off regardless. I had to let that go. So I did. I lost some family, close family too. I lost a best friend at that time. We stopped talking. One of my relationships, I lost a relationship at that time.
Really?
Yes. Wow. I even lost a family member through death. And that was like a big transition. So I was experiencing a lot of loss, even loss of just like your identity, me being that corporate girl.
Yes. That's such a good point.
The brand that I built for myself, you know, took, you know, you sit that long and build up your reputation and your brand, and something at a drop of a dime can just like try to break it. So that was a lot for me to deal with. But the way I got through that was a lot of prayer. I must say God was like really by my side. A lot of prayer, a lot of writing, a lot of understanding myself.
Yes.
And not lying to myself. I had to hold myself accountable too. Like, okay, in this situation, what did I do? It's easy to say, oh, this person did that. They didn't show up for me. They didn't do this. And I had to say, how was I showing up? And what did I do? Because that's the only person that I could control.
What was your role in that?
Exactly. And once I shift that a lot, and also like, oh, well, this person has attitude, so I'm gonna have attitude. People would be like, oh, you meet people where they are. Like, you know, no. You have to come up and meet me, because I'm gonna keep my energy the same. I'm not gonna go down and not lower myself to your energy. You either have to come up and get it, or you're going to fall off because you can't reach it.
Right.
And I allowed that to happen. And I started to see that. And once I was more grounded in that, I felt a new transition happen. And then God started to bring new people in my life.
Oh, isn't that amazing?
That's
so beautiful. Oh, I got chills thinking of that. So I love that. So you said your relationship with God. Did you, were you always spiritual even like before your journey?
Mhm.
Okay. And it just got stronger as you went on this entrepreneurial journey?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So do you journal?
I journal. Like I keep my journals too.
Yes.
So sometimes I flip. I said, "Ooh, child, that's what you was going through back then." I was like, "Ooh," because sometimes I want to get rid of them, and because
Okay.
I feel like everything has energy, right? So I'm like, I'm on a new chapter of my life. Sometimes I want to let that go, but then also it's nice to just kind of briefly look to see some of the things that I was writing and going through, what I was praying for at that time, what I was trying to manifest at that time, and seeing those things come to fruition and some not, because I'm like, it's truly not what I needed.
Yeah.
So I feel like I was always spiritual, but as I started to develop more throughout my career and things of that nature, even in the bank, I started to find more of who I was. I became stronger in my relationship with God. And it's mostly like those heart-wrenching lessons that had me like, listen, something got to give. So
Right.
all right, I'm listening because I don't want to repeat this cycle again.
There you go. Yeah. And that's in terms of the relationships and the patterns you were saying. And it's like,
even career-wise, I before the bank, ending my career with the bank, I knew I had to leave, but
and you
didn't.
felt that. Why? How did you know?
It's almost like when you're in a relationship with that guy or that woman, and you just know that it's not right and it's about time. This is coming to an end. I had whispers, I had feelings, I had inclinations, and I processed it, but I didn't trust it. And me ignoring it ended up like, I don't want to say costing me, but it taught me a lesson to not ignore the signs. And we find that out in relationships all the time. Like we call them red flags, right?
Absolutely.
Companies give us a lot of red flags as well. And I had to be accountable for me ignoring those signs and, not place blame. So I knew I needed to go. And now I trust myself 100%. I listen when it doesn't feel right, when I get any, that gut feeling.
Yes, I was just going to say. So do you feel it in your gut?
Yeah, you feel it in the gut. And sometimes it's like a slight little tingle. Sometimes it's very subtle, but it's there. It's like our nervous system reacting to what we can't physically see. And because I know about the mind, body, soul connection, I do not ignore that anymore. So I knew it was time, and definitely God showed me it was time, because when I transitioned, it's kind of like showing me all these opportunities, all these doors opening, and things were just easier. And I'm like, this is a life that I was supposed to be living.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be hard.
No.
I feel like that's something I've learned along the way, where I don't have to struggle for my success. I don't have to struggle for finances. And even learning more about money, it made me realize, what kind of relationship is that I'm building with money, where I have to be in pain and stress to earn my paycheck to live my, life. Like, no, I want to be happy and feel good about what I'm doing to earn that money.
That was key. That's key, what you just said.
Any advice that you would give to other women, particularly women of color, who maybe are stepping into entrepreneurship themselves, or they're thinking about it, or they are in the corporate world and they want to level up, or but they're feeling some sort of internal struggle, or maybe they are hearing those whispers and those gut feelings as well, but they're not sure, maybe they're too much in their mind and they might feel stuck. What kind of advice would you give to somebody?
I say always do your best. I know it's cliche, but really ask yourself if what you're putting forward is your best, because when you're in entrepreneurship, you definitely have to give your best. Like you talked about the discipline needed. There's nobody telling us we need to be at work at 8:30. There's nobody telling us to send that email. There's nobody else telling us to create that content. We are that us. So when you think about all the things that you've done for these other people's organization and business, do that for yourself, because you deserve it. So I learned pouring into my cup is not selfish. It's actually really mindful of me to do that, because now I'm able to give my overflow. Before, I'm trying to pour from a half full cup and I'm giving everybody here. And then that's why I have an attitude. I'm frustrated and I'm not my vibrant self. And when I'm pouring into my cup, I'm very vibrant and I'm very giving and I'm very kind and I'm in the receiving mode and I receive more. So kind of check yourself and see what kind of mode are you are. Are you in a receiving mode? Are you able to receive the blessings that are upon you? Especially entrepreneurship, you have to really be in an abundant mindset because it gets challenging. It's not always rainbows and sunshine. You know, we have those clouds, but we have to understand that after the clouds, you know, the flowers still appear. So I say that focus on yourself, understand yourself, know who you are in business and what your opportunities are. And then those opportunities, get somebody else to fill them in for you. Like, you're not meant to be a one woman or one man show.
Yes.
Entrepreneurship is about, you know, hiring, developing and building. So understand that you're going to be building a business and hold yourself accountable. Hold yourself accountable because nobody else is.
By that?
I mean, don't place blame. When you do something wrong, especially in business, accept it, fix it, learn from it, and move forward. And if you're not getting the results that you want, look at yourself because it's probably you.
I love that. I feel like that's something I've had to learn a lot recently, where it's like, even though we might not be the perpetrator, just I can still look at my role in that. How did I allow myself to be a victim or something in that space? So that's been really helpful for me. So thank you. Okay. Thank you so much, Rosalee, for being here today. I would love to have you back and discuss even more about your experiences and your journey, because I know there's so much more and we just scratched the surface today, but it's been really great to have you.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you. Thank you for this platform.
Speaking of platforms, where can our listeners find out more about you?
I'm mostly active on Instagram. You can find me at RosieRose007, which is ROSIE ROSE 007. Find me there, and I'm Rosalee Daly on Facebook.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode of the Mindshift Mami Show. Remember to keep shifting those mindsets, and we'll see you in the next episode. Take care. Bye.